Hello, everyone. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range. And I have with me David, who made a comment on one of the last YouTube video that I did with Drake, and a number of people have asked me about it. And it's a very fascinating comment, and I think we'll discuss it a little bit more. One of the first things that I thought about was the fact that we were under the impression that Trump was going to shut down the Federal Reserve. And apparently they're still fighting for their last breath of air, or what? Can you comment on that, David?
Well, sure. The Federal Reserve is one of the last biggest great overthrows of our country. And they own United States, the corporation. So Trump is merely the CEO of that corporation. So he does basically what they tell him.
I thought the corporation was bankrupt.
That's the intent. They operate in bankruptcy, in perpetuity, and enslave the people as surety for the debt that they created artificially.
So we are debt slaves.
If you so choose, you have a way out.
Well, that's what we really need to talk about, is the way out.
Well, the difficult part isn't the way out. The difficult part is to get it into the people's brains that they can do it. They have always something that they tell themselves for an excuse for why they can't, won't, refuse.
Well, we deal with a lot of cognitive dissonance because we've been lied to about so many things. And so people hear something that's apart from the standard propaganda, and they go, well, that can't be true. But yet they can't explain some of the things that are happening as a result.
Well, that's true and more, sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of the biggest problems is the trafficking of persons. And I think we need to define some of the words that are basically legalese that are used against the people.
Well, that's how they turn you into a debt slave. Because the Rome, or the Vatican, is operating mentally in very dark spirit that they own you, they own all things. So they use you as their debt slave. That's the debt is enslavement. It's that simple. So they traffic your person by getting, they created an estate and trust against you, and they use that against you when you act for it as opposed to getting them to act for it. So you were born, but there was an entity that was birthed. So everyone who is listening to this can verify what I'm talking about just by reaching into their pocket and pulling out a thing called the driver's license. And they'll see something on it in all capital letters, all caps, capitis diminutio maxima. So there'll be a birth certificate, or a certificate of live birth, I should say, is where they attach the family name to the Christian name. So you'll see John Henry Doe, upper and lower case, which is the first abomination. Then they create the all caps John Henry Doe, which is the another fictional person. And then you'll see on the driver's license it will say John H. Doe. John H. Doe.
Switch it around a little bit to confuse.
Well, it's a transmitting utility, so you can operate in commerce in the bankruptcy. So everything in commerce is under the control of the banks. So if you walk around thinking that you're a U.S. citizen, which you can't be.
Explain that, David. People don't understand that. They're almost insulted. I've said I'm not a U.S. citizen, but when you say that, they look at you like you're nuts, or you're unpatriotic, or you're this, that, or the other thing, and it has nothing to do with that. They don't realize that it pulls them into the Washington, D.C.
Well, what happened was they first, before I forget, for the benefit of your listeners, there's a 6-minute video that everyone needs to watch. It's called "Born Alive Certificated Person." 6 minutes. In 6 minutes, you're going to find out. And I get the most animated reactions from nurses.
Yes, I seen that a long time ago, to tell you the truth. I know Kurt Kallenbach, and I know that he's come out with some very good information. And I think he was one of the first people that brought that out to the public. You show it to people and they get a little bit, what? But
what it is they can't comprehend that the world is not as it is inside their little head. Right.
If you were to look at my birth certificate as an example, and they've changed them over the years somewhat, it calls my mother an informant.
Well, she's informing a corporate entity that the little criminal is the foundling, right? So that's what it is. The birth certificate, that entity, it gets trafficked to Puerto Rico and gets put into an IRS trust. And then it gets trafficked back to the District of Columbia, where it becomes a resident alien of the District of Columbia, a U.S. person. A person is a fiction. It's a mask. It's a vessel, a fraud, a debtor. Okay? Straw man, they're called. But a proper straw man has bonds posted against it because it's an in-between. It's an agent, but it happens to be doing things that are unlawful. It would take great amounts of time to explain all that. So just go with that right there. So, and I always use the analogy of the Wizard of Oz because it's kind of adds a little humor to it. Because everyone grows up watching the movie. They love the movie, but they have no idea what it means.
Really means, the Wizard of Oz, yeah.
Yeah, right. So anyway, mom has a baby, but she signs the birth records with her maiden voyage name in marriage, mare, marine, water, ocean, right? So she signs as the informant about the little bastard child. So she takes the baby home. The baby was born on the land, but the bastard child, the infant, the vessel, is the afterbirth. It's the other DNA. It's called the decedent. The decedent is dying. And of course, that thing gets abandoned right away because the way that the hospitals deliver, liver is live, deliver. You should think about the words that they're teaching you to use that you don't know what they mean. They cut the umbilical cord right away, which should never happen.
I know that.
Right,
yeah.
right. I mean, so anyway, the dead, dying decedent, presumed dead, dying, lost at sea, is who leaves the black footprints in the back of the birth certificate. Okay, so that is the U.S. citizen, not you. So everyone says, "Well, that's my birth certificate." No, it isn't.
You didn't create it. That's the other thing.
Just because they called your mother's plumbing a birth canal, she broke her water, all that. It's all tricks and plays on words. So basically, English is a crafted slave language, and no one knows how to write, and they write everything incorrectly. They sign instead of autograph. They create joinder and bondage for themselves with a dead entity, which is really not good.
And it's used against people in so many different ways, including child protective services is another thing, because a child is not a living man or woman, baby.
They're trafficking the all caps guy. So remember, Dorothy was in black and white in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Everything's in black and white. Law. And she lived in Kansas, and everything was beautiful. She lived on the farm. Black and white means do no harm. I don't know if you can hear that, but
A little bit, but
I
that's
have a roommate that's talking to someone who requires constant attention. So anyway, Toto was the dog. Total, tutti, all, everything. Toto, total.
yeah.
Just call it the whole farm. And the mean lady wanted to take the dog. I'll have the sheriff prosecute you if you don't give me that dog. So the mean lady wanted everything. Okay. So what ended up happening was she got upset. Her aunt and uncle wanted to go along with the whole nasty plan because they were a fear of new law. And when I say new law, to explain it to the listeners, it would be everything that happened after what you inappropriately call the Civil War. Everything changed, went into a military martial law rule, executive administrative rule.
How did that happen?
Well, the Union of States fell apart. Basically, the first Constitution was breached. The Southern states refused to participate. Some refer
So they
to
were actually the right. They were in the right, the way I understand it.
Well, yes and no. When I say no, that doesn't spread blame to the Southern states. It means that they were part of something that their people before them got them involved in. Basically, you hear the Constitution was a more perfect union over the Articles of Confederation. Well, what that means really is a more perfect debt consolidation, because a constitutor is a debtor.
Wow, that's big.
Right.
That's
So
because
they created a big debt. United States, or the American people, never got their freedom really totally after what they call the Revolutionary War or the Declaration of Independence. It's all nonsense. Because England could not give away the new land because those were their colonies, states. It's a colony. So they were all companies. They can't give them away because England is owned by the Vatican as of the 13th century. So who were they to give away the Vatican's land?
How did the Vatican get so big and own everything anyway?
Well, everybody goes along with it, and then what few don't get murdered because the Vatican is an evil entity. It's Rome, and it's the old bloodlines tracing all the way back before Greece and Egypt, all the way back to Babylon. Right? Old bloodline. It's a criminal enterprise. There are ruling families who are criminal entities who got together to control the Vatican. So all Vatican is appears to be religious, spiritual head of the world. So you have the Vatican, City of London in the United States. So District of Columbia, City of London, which is a small section of the middle of London, and the Vatican City. So the Vatican is the spiritual center, City of London is the financial center, and the United States is the military end, the enforcement arm. So that's all United States does, is go around and rape, rob, terrorize, and pillage other nations for City of London. Okay? Right. That's what they do. So, without getting too far off the mark, Dorothy ran into a guy. Now, it's been many years since I've seen the movie, but ran into a guy in a covered wagon and turned out to be the wizard later. And it said something on the covered wagon. And I know I'm going to get it wrong, but it amounts to basically credited by the 7 kings of Europe, 7 hills of Rome, right over.
Wow, that's yeah, I haven't seen it for so many years, and when I did see it, I did a connection to all these things.
So what is black and white? Do no harm. That's law. do no harm. So, all right, let me hang on a second. I have to stop this.
Okay. Well, I hope you're enjoying the explanation of this because I found it rather profound. Some of it I knew, but a lot of it I didn't know. And David is a very deep researcher. He doesn't just surface research. He researches the kind of history that has been suppressed and kept from us. And it's only to our advantage to know some of these things and do some of the research ourselves as best we can. And again, it's deep research.
Sorry about that. Ordinarily, I would say something to put an end to that, but she's an older woman and she has a head injury. And
it's okay. I mean, that you're a deep researcher of hidden history.
Well, as I was telling you before, when you spend all of your time in hidden history, in the world of history, I spend my time in other subject areas, but in the world of hidden history, number one, you have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig in every direction so you can put the pictures together, and you end up knowing things that no one knows, and worse, no one wants to believe. Yeah, so the Declaration of Independence is what we call the interoffice memo because both sides participated in it. The whole idea was to foment a war and run up a massive debt. So there was a guy who used to have a webpage called The Informer. I don't know if he's still around. It's been years since I visited it, but it was called Defeat by Victory. So they ran up both sides of a debt.
Is that kind of like funding both sides of a war?
That's exactly what they do. Right. And then they orchestrate the war. And they basically ultimately control who would appear to win it. So what ended up happening...
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, appear to win it.
Yeah.
And don't they get paid for every single soldier or...
Well, that's a mercenary.
That died.
Now you're going right back to Rothschild and the Khazars. The Khazars, the what we call today the Jesuit Zionist bankers. And everyone says, ooh, Zionist, like it's a hot word. That's because they don't know anything. And what they do believe they know comes from television. So if television tells you every day, that if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Semitic, pretty soon they're going to have the general population believing that, number one, the Zionists are Semitic, which they're not, and two, that the Zionists are not anti-Semitic. So the Zionists are actually the most anti-Semitic people on the planet. So if you look at Semitic people, whether they be religious Jews, people from the Middle East, Muslims, whatever, if you look at all these people as your fellow man and woman, then you don't have any hatred for anybody. But the people who have the hatred are the Zionists because they want to control commerce, they want to control the world, they want to enslave everyone, because that's just a cover name. And most of the Zionists are not Semitic. Almost none of them are Semitic. Right?
Are they the Khazars?
Most of them, almost all of them. Okay. Yeah, they call it the Khazar Mafia. They're Turkic Mongol Huns from an area between what we would call the Union of Eurasia. They were booted out of all parts of Europe and Asia because they were such, we're on a show, so criminally insane psychopaths. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the trade routes are always waterways and sometimes land that you could travel upon, and quite often those included waterways. So believe it or not, you can link between waterways and easily traveled lands between Scandinavia all the way down through Russia, all the way down to Iraq. So then you go east of that and you'll find the Indus River, India, and then that's where other trade routes would, you had all kinds of stuff going on in the Far East. and it would come from the Far East to the Middle East and throughout Europe, and of course, Northern Africa. So the word Middle East is really a clever deception. So anyway, they would rape, rob, and pillage anyone who went through there, and they demanded 10%, or they'd just murder you. And, right.
Yes.
Or they were penis-worshipping pagans, atheists. They were as socially unfit for the world as any socially disgraceful sociopath could be. So it ended up, after years and years of pillaging, selling off mercenaries, the whole bit, I think his name was King Buldan, was told by the Persians and the Russians, look, you guys better adopt a religion because your people are absolute, they're just menaces. You need to get your people need to find some way of acting like civilized people. And it ended up that they hired all these rabbis, but now remember, now there are Torah Jews, and then there are these Satanists called Babylonian Talmudic religious people. So the Talmud is a man-made satanic document. And it doesn't matter whether people who hear this like it, agree with it, it's the way it is, it's the way it's going to be. So the Torah Jews are oppressed by them. They don't even want their kids to be taught in schools Torah Judaism, right? The Old Testament the way it is. So the Talmud is about 60,000 pages of man-made crap. Like Goyim is someone that's not one of them. So if they murder you, you don't get the death penalty. If they rob you, oh well. So they look at, only a Satanist would say that, you know, they're superior to others. Their God is not the creator, the spirit creator. The great spirit, as the Indians call it. I like that term because...
Yeah, I liked it too.
Right. They're psychopaths. So they're the ones running all the banks, and Rome uses them. They don't really get along well with the Semitic Muslims because Muslims don't believe in usury. So Babylonian magic money is what runs the Federal Reserve.
They're debt notes. They're not, it's not.
You're the creditor. So let's talk about that quickly.
Yeah, that's something.
Because as we get into this, we're going to go from black and white. Dorothy got into a tornado, dropped the house, opened up the front door, walked out into the color of law.
Oh, that's good.
That's why everyone is being held as an enslaved population in color of law. So all of your color of law jurisdiction over you, permits, taxes, statutes, codes, rules, regulations, policies, procedures, commerce, everything that they're doing is all because of your use of Federal Reserve notes. And they had to give you a remedy. There is a remedy. Otherwise, it's obvious enslavement. So if you don't take your remedy to stop paying taxes, you're consenting to pay taxes, right? So your remedy is in 12 United States Code 411. And it's right there, hidden in the code. The very last sentence of that paragraph says they, meaning Federal Reserve notes, shall be redeemed in lawful money at any one of their central banks, or member banks. So what does that mean? Hello? Federal Reserve notes are not lawful money. So when you walk around using Federal Reserve notes, carrying them, using them, you're creating debt. You're a purveyor of debt. So, of course, you would be considered the enemy of the state in a bankruptcy because you don't have rights to use military script for the District of Columbia. So now you're walking around acting like the all caps guy because if you go to get a loan in quotation marks, are you a U.S. citizen? So what does every uninformed man and woman do? Check, yeah.
Everybody, yeah, if you just say you're not, they think there's something wrong with you.
No, U.S. citizens are freed black slaves, naturalized immigrants, and of course, people who were born in U.S. territories. So if you live in Skokie, Illinois, you're not born in a U.S. territory. You were born on the land called Skokie, not city of Skokie, not city of Los Angeles, all capital letters, city of, town of, county of, state of. Those are all corporate overlay, overthrow, otherwise known as coup d'etat states. So the reason they get away with it and they operate right out in the open is because they have really dumb populations who don't even hardly need to be controlled. They have low IQ police, and only some of them figure it out after you tell them. And then who's orchestrating all of this bankruptcy, fraud, and trafficking? The Bar Association. They're bankers, brokers. The bench is the bank. Those are under the International Monetary Fund. Every single court you see is not a court at all. It's under the U.S. district courts. Those are bankruptcy administrators. So they're using all of the people as debtors. Why? Because you want to call yourself a debtor. You're the creditor and the beneficiary. The trustee is the debtor. The guy in the black robe is the trustee. So if you walk in there and say you're the U.S. citizen, you're the all caps guy, oh, that's me, Your Honor, then now you're the trustee.
But that's the first thing they do is they ask, what's your name? And as soon
as you don't have any paperwork to show otherwise. I don't have a name. I'm not owned by anybody. My mother calls me David. Well, you must have a last name. I say, no, I'm not dead.
No, yeah, people that.
So if you have John Henry Doe, Doe isn't the last name. John Henry Doe is the last name because it's in all capital letters. Go to any cemetery and look at what's on the stone.
Wow.
So Doe is the family name. So it was the Vatican that attached the family name to your Christian name. So your Christian name is John or John Henry. So you write colon, John hyphen, Henry with a lowercase h, full colon. That's a fact.
Okay. What
John
does
Henry Doe is a fiction. So why would you want to pretend to be the fiction? So
nobody knows that.
That's the straw man. Now, Dorothy stepped out into the color of law, didn't she?
Yeah, she sure did.
So there was a dead...
So does everybody else.
There was the bank squashed dead under their house, wasn't it? The Wicked Witch of the East. Okay? The Wicked Witch of the East had silver slippers on. In the movie, they were ruby red. So Dorothy put on the silver slippers. So today, by law, $1 is 371.25 grains of silver. Period. So what does a Federal Reserve note say? This note, IOU, debt instrument, is legal tender. Legal is not lawful for all debts, public and private. Okay? So on the dollar, they call it the one. There's the treasury side and the de facto side. So people customarily use the ones. You won't catch me with any of them at all. Any green paper. I don't even own one. I use silver. I use bartering. I use things that I will take. So your remedy under 12 U.S.C. 411, say I give you a check for $1,000 and you go and deposit it in an interest-bearing account. Right off the bat, you're breaking the law. They want you to break the law. So it goes in as 1,000. No, there's a 10% reserve requirement. So 1,000 is 10% of what?
Wow.
10,000. So, okay. They can loan out into infinity. So they'll leave 10% in the bank. They have to leave because it's a fabric of fiction. So you put in 1,000 into the bank, and along comes Joe next door. He goes to your bank and needs a loan for 900. So they give him a check. So there it is, a check, an absolute fictitious pile of crap. Then he goes and takes that check and deposits it in his bank. Now he has 900 fictions in there. Then someone else comes along and borrows 810. And then it goes on and on and on and on and on. And then there are derivatives created because of the alleged loans. So when you sit down to sign a loan for a house, you securitize the instrument. So where does the money fund, or the funds of the fictions come from? You. So you're living in a debt world, creating more debt. So the alleged mortgage, all of those funds come from you. And believe me, it can be proven. And the way to stop them isn't the way most people fight in court. Okay. So
How do you stop them?
it's a long explanation and a lot of paperwork. So you have to get them to admit it. That's the way to make a long explanation very short. Okay. They don't have the instrument. Why? Because the instrument got turned into a check and then the instrument was destroyed. So at the closing is where you lose it. They give you a check. There's the check for 300,000 fictions. And what do? They say endorse the back of it and just give it back. So you endorse the back of the check, your remedy. That's your remedy. And you gave it right back to them. They deposit under your straw man's name. And then after 90 days, you abandoned it. So now when you're paying every month, you're paying on a hidden lease agreement, right? A repurchasing agreement and derivatives. So now you're backing the unsecuritized notes that are going out into the market. So how do you securitize unsecuritized notes? Well, you can't really. So you insure them. So they're all insured, all those unsecuritized notes. That's why you have all this mortgage insurance. Why? Because you're insuring something that doesn't exist. Those aren't real notes. Those are unsecuritized things. So what they're doing is they're propagating and trafficking counterfeited securities. So the guy on the bench, the bank, is a Crown Temple bar attorney. The banker sends an attorney who breaks every kind of law that there is when he walks in there. He's a Crown Temple bar attorney. And then you go out and you pay $10,000, $20,000 of fiction to another Crown Temple bar attorney. So you're in an administrative IMF bank and you have 3 brokers. And you think that the broker that you're hiring is representing you. He doesn't. You're number 3 on the list. All you have to do is read Corpus Juris Secundum, and you'll see that you're number 3 on the list. They protect the state of, in all caps, the court, and then you. Now, if the other party is obviously breaking a law that hurts their bank, then they'll favor you. So if they're all members of the Crown Temple Bar, and your attorney, by the way, works for the guy on the bench.
Yeah, they're all officers of the court.
They're administrators.
I call them a public pretender.
They're brokers. They're shipping clerks. They're reaping the salvage of your vessel that you abandoned. Because when you hit 7 years old, your mother and father never claimed your vessel.
They didn't know.
They worse. When you hear me explain this, and I try to explain this to people and show them the proof, like right now, people you're listening to are listening to me. They're not looking at all of the proof in the paperwork. So, and demonstration of how this works. In one ear, right out the other. They don't want to hear it. So what they do is they make the best slaves. So I tell white people, and I'm going to take white privilege here, stop making fun of the black people. Because the black people know something's wrong. White people make the best slaves because they're stupid enough to think they're free. Okay? That's why they were murdering Indians, because the Indians didn't want to be slaves. The Indians wouldn't use their slavish language. Okay?
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's that simple. When someone tells someone to do what to do, you should immediately go, well, wait a minute. Who are you? But the white people go, well, if you had problems with the police, you must have done something wrong.
Yeah, that's the first thing they do.
What does that mean? It's called color of law. So Dorothy walked into color of law, didn't she? So she puts on silver slippers, and she says to the munchkins, how do I get the hell out of here? And they said, follow the yellow brick road. Gold bricks to the Wizard of Oz, ounces, right? Silver and gold, that's money. real money. Stay on the proper path. So when she went down the path, she immediately became drawn off. What did she do? She ran into someone. Who was the first guy Dorothy ran into?
The straw man.
The straw man. So he sang a song. And he even mentioned, I'd tell every individual. So what's an individual? The all caps guy, the person, the mask, the fraud, the actor, the player. Right. So he is supposed to be a representative or representative of the estate and trust, the straw man, the one that they trafficked and created and bonded now. They bonded it and put it on the open market. Today, I understand today, if you bond today, they create the birth record and it gets bonded for $1 million and goes out into the open market and it gets extrapolated into all kinds of investments and derivatives. That's why they really get hairy when you don't register the birth. Why do they get enforcement power? Because you didn't correct your status. You're walking around as the dead guy U.S. citizen. So, of course, if you own a dog and a female dog and they have puppies, who owns the puppies? The dogs or you? So your owner owns you because you gave yourself to them and abandoned yourself to them. So they own your puppies. No one reads the back of the marriage license application. Quite often in different states, they'll say, the product of this marriage belongs to state of. Hello? They can't wait to get married. When you get married and you do the biblical portion of the marriage, you undo it as soon as you fill out the marriage license because you're signing for the all caps dead guy, immediately flying in the face of your Christian name. Okay?
Wow.
Right. So you form a private contract. The problem is a lot of people don't want to sign private contracts. That's how you can end any engagement. Just offer them the contract and watch how fast they run away. Because a lot of them know that if they go to the courts, the divorce, family, and child courts, they know they're going to get handed everything. So if they won't sign the love test, as I call it,
yeah,
don't even think of marrying that lizard because they're already setting you up for divorce before they even get involved. Well, if you really loved me, you wouldn't think about, well, let's talk face facts. 57% divorce rate for first-time marriages. Would you invest in a stock that fails 57% of the time? Second marriages, it's even higher. Okay?
Oh, really? Wow.
So people, critical thinking, and I'm going to oversimplify it. It's the onion. How many layers in the onion? You got 3 layers of skin. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, several layers. They peel off 1 layer of skin. They think they've done all the thinking. They don't think anything through. Okay. Critical thinking would prevent you from signing a marriage license. It would prevent you from signing a birth record. That's a private contract, giving the estate away for a bankrupt, private, perpetually, artificially bankrupted corporation called United States. United States is something that most people can't even find on a map.
Well, they try to equate it with patriotism.
They can equate chicken salad with chicken poop all they want. Doesn't make sense, right? So Dorothy locked arms with the straw man, didn't she? And they skipped down the road together. And what did Dorothy get for being so stupid? The Tin Man, taxpayer identification number. Oops, Social Security number. Right?
Oh my word, yeah.
Plus, it's if you take the dashes out of it, it's a Treasury direct number. So you can't access your estate. So remember now, in the estate in trust, you're the grantor, you're the creditor, and you're the beneficiary. It's a triangle, see? Mm-hmm. The trustee is the guy on the bench. He's the administrator. He's the bankruptcy administrator. That's an executive administrative bank. It's not a judicial court. That's why you have bar attorneys who are officers of the court seated in the House of Legislature and Senate. How's that? Because those are not legislative bodies, those are administrative bodies. So state of, in all capital letters, and you're in Arizona, I think, state of Arizona, in all capital letters, is not run by the governor or a legislature. It's administrative. It's a bankrupt, foreign, private corporation. It's run by the Grand Master Mason. The Masons run it because that's the finger of the Vatican. The Jesuits, the Zionist bankers, the Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, the Freemasons, Council on Foreign Relations. That's how they've intertwined themselves into everything. And they're all basically spies. So the atturners are spies. They attorn your estate over to the crown.
That was a very interesting word when we discussed that previously.
Right.
A turner.
Right.
They turn over your.
So they'll call the straw man at the court, and you'll see the vessel. You open the gates to board the vessel. They'll call him John Doe, and then, oh, that's me, Your Honor.
Big mistake, huh?
Big. Plus, you made many other mistakes before you even got in there. You're not even supposed to be in there. What appears? Dead spirits. All rise. So what happens? You appear on paper because you're the court of record. You're the living man. You walk in there, you're giving yourselves to the captain of the vessel because he's reaping your salvage.
Wow.
Okay.
I remember one time I said that bailiff was saying, all right, and I said, is that what from the dead or what?
Yeah, well, so the attorney files an appearance for your straw man, which tells the guy on the bench, he takes quiet notice of the fact that you're the incompetent imbecile ward of the court now, because you can't tend to your own affairs.
An incompetent
imbecile
and ward of the court, because you say that you're the public name that was created on your birth certificate.
Is you.
That is you.
Right.
And then it's all over, basically.
Right. So a big subject that comes up pretty often is registrations, cars, licenses to travel, even though the courts say you don't need a license to travel.
Yeah, right.
Because basically the people will say, and they'll hear what I'm saying, well, that's not going to help me in court. Well, I'm going to give them a stiff response to that question that I hear all the time.
Okay.
That's not what hurts you in court. It's all of the other stupidity that you chose to maintain because you're not reading, watching football, TV, fishing, whatever you're doing, you're not reading. So if you go back 150 years, 200 years, you're going to find out that everyone knew all the stuff that I'm talking about. They knew it. So then all of a sudden they started saying, don't worry about this, just hire an attorney. We'll take care of it. So eventually the attorneys changed everything so that you have to go through them. Why? Because of an artificial bankruptcy. But you're not in bankruptcy. You're the creditor and the beneficiary. So if you go in there and you say, yeah, that's me, Your Honor, you're giving him jurisdiction. And now he's going to turn himself into the beneficiary and you're the trustee. That's why you hear me explain things to you personally, but I don't say it on shows necessarily because people will take a little bit of information, change half of it, and then give you all the blame when they screw it up. So I no longer give any kind of information out to people like what actually does work there. I'll give you a hint. You're walking around as the dead guy, and you better do something to fix that. And if you use this mentality, I'm the dead guy, that should spark a lot of thinking for you to start doing research to find out where you can go to correct this. Okay? You have a birth record, a baptism in the water, bankruptcy, current C, insolvency, liquidation, okay, dead in the water. You're under the Vatican. The Vatican agent comes and gets your abandoned birth records and takes it to probate and kills you. Okay.
Wow.
So you can't access your estate now. So if you're going to be the creditor to the bankrupt corporation, it comes with a little icing on the cake. You're prepaid because they're making bazillions for everything that they use from you. Okay? So what you're supposed to do is be the beneficiary. And why aren't you benefiting from your estate? It's very simple. You're acting like the dead guy. So you're not the creditor and the beneficiary. You're acting as the trustee. It's simple trust law. The only people that learn this quickly are people who know trust law. That even includes attorneys, because they find out all their statutory trusts are under the control of a foreign bank. Never open up a statutory trust. Always do everything in private. So people will do things and get halfway there, 1/4 of the way there, and not know what to do. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I feel
The
guilty.
state owns your car. The state owns your car.
As soon as you
How
right?
does the state own your car? Well, number one, you didn't buy the car outright with any substance, and you certainly didn't set it off under your right to set off because you're prepaid. So the sticker on the car is not the cost of the car. That's the tax liability. That's not an automobile dealership. That's an impound yard. So the car comes from the manufacturer with the manufacturer's statement of origin. That's the title. So what happens? You go in there with Federal Reserve fiction, and then you sign over power of attorney to the impound yard, and he goes and registers the car to the state of, and they take the MSO and destroy it, and turn the copies of it into negotiable instruments on the open market. Now the state has a securitized interest in your car. Now you're the driver in a motor vehicle in commerce because you think you're the dead guy, the all caps corporate entity, dead entity, and you think that you're the driver of a car. And then out comes the really serious, mentally disturbing stuff. Well, you have to have a license because how are you going to protect people on the road? Well, don't all the drunks who crash into people and kill them, don't they have licenses?
Yeah, I know. Somebody said to me one time, well, how can you drive without a license? I said, you put your hands on
You're
the
not driving.
foot on the brake.
You're moving about in household hardware. Now, Dick Marple in New Hampshire wrote House Bill 1778 and another follow-up. Now, he did the most thorough, perfect, well-researched job on the bill that you could do. He proved with New Hampshire stuff, federal stuff, maxims of law, you have the right to travel. No one can turn that right into a privilege unless you claim that you're a U.S. citizen, which is a corporate entity and a slave of the foreign corporation. So what did the State House do? New Hampshire has the third largest legislative body on the planet, 400 reps. 50 of them, now only about 5 or 10 of them really kind of know law, but the rest of them have logical minds. They can see something's wrong with a lot of the stuff. 50 of them voted for the bill. 350 of them voted against the bill. That means most of the Republicans are not Republicans. They run as Republicans. They're Democrats. We call them rhinos, Republican in name only. They run as Republicans. They act conservative, just like Bill Clinton used to. They call him Slick Willie. That's the reason why he got called Slick Willie, because he used to act like a conservative when he ran, and then when he got in there, he was a total jackass. So 350 of them voted to traffic because of budgetary concerns. So they held the people responsible for a commercially artificial budget deficit. Now they'll say, oh, we have to make sure we don't go over the deficit or kill the deficit, pay down the deficit. Well, you can't pay down the deficit. The deficit is all booking entry. And how do you pay down a debt with instruments of debt? So every time a bill would go in to open up a private bank in New Hampshire, all the Democrats, bar attorneys are all in there squealing like stuck pigs. Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. Because the Democrats like to overspend. Now, most of the Democrats are just mentally deficient. The higher up Democrats are absolutely out to destroy everything because they work for the same people that many of the higher up Republicans work for. The bar, the Freemasons, these foreign entities. Okay.
So, two wings of the same bird, basically.
Well, it's a lopsided bird. Okay, I'll say this. And
Okay.
I spend a lot of time at different state houses. The Democrats are definitely the loony bin. They don't believe that people should have any rights. They don't believe that your kids are your property. They don't believe that you should be free and independent. They want your money. See, that's the problem with being a social Democrat liberal. They keep running out of other people's money. Right? So they want you to give your wealth to them. So that's why if you take your check and you deposit it under 12 United States Code 411 with your transmitting utility, John H. Doe, right, all caps, John H. Doe, 12 United States Code 411, special deposit for lawful money, and you autograph it properly, proper parse syntax, quantum grammar. You put it into a zero interest account, it goes in as U.S. notes. They don't give you gold anymore. The reason they stopped that is not that we went off the gold standard. We didn't technically have a gold standard. What happened during the Nixon administration is the Saudis, they call them crypto fake Jews. They're in with Israel, of course. Hello. They deal with Federal Reserve, petrodollars. So they Kissinger and Nixon agreed with them that we'll make you rich, but make sure you do everything in petrodollars. And they stopped them from exchanging the Federal Reserve notes for gold. That's what they meant when they said they took them off the gold standard.
Okay, I'm going to say something there. Trump keeps talking about going back to gold-backed money. What?
Well, it's not up to Trump. And the United States is defunct. They've been through 3 70-year bankruptcies. They've been through liquidation. So now United States is defunct. And anybody who knows what defunct means it's done. So now they're merging with the Zimbabwe dollar, ZIM, that's gold-based. Okay. So things are going to change, not necessarily for the good right away. So a lot of people believe in all kinds of things that are intangible and unprovable, but things are changing. So we have to watch carefully what's happening. Now, the military reports to the people. So the people are so out to lunch, and that includes most of the people who hear the stuff that I say, not necessarily today, but throughout all time, 99.9% of the people just like, they have this deer in the headlights, dazed and crazed look on their face because they don't know what to do with new information. They're going to let other people take care of everything for them, which makes them incompetent. So they're the slaves.
Well, let's face it, they have made it so complicated.
It's not complicated at all. All you have to do is have the mentality and philosophy in your brain that black and white is law. Okay? It's law. Remember the Wizard of Oz again. They screwed you up a little bit. Remember there's poison in the poppies? That'll slow them down a bit.
Yeah.
Everybody went to sleep in the poppy fields, the drug trade. That include Congress, right? Not Congress. Hasn't been a Congress since 1861, arguably since before that, because the South wanted nothing to do with the mounting artificial debt. The average guy down south did not own slaves. That was BS. It was the Khazars, Rothschild's buddies. They did that on purpose to help make sure that they could destroy the country. So the South saw that they were never going to get out of this debt. And they had the right to secede because of fraud. The Constitution was breached almost immediately. That's what the War of 1812 was about. Alexander Levine, a.k.a. Hamilton, opened up a central bank called the First Bank of the United States. It was a debt-based bank. And then they wanted to renew the charter after 20 years, 1811, it ran out.
I used to think he was a good guy.
Oh, yeah. They always appear to like the Shriners, they have a burn center to help kids when they're crazy Masons. All right, it's shadow government. So then Article 13 came out. Article 13 was, in fact, ratified. I have all of the records, and it was ratified by Virginia long before 1819. That was the second time that they did it. Okay, so all of the publications in every single state from back then, and I'll send you a copy, you can see that everywhere in there is Article 13. Article 13 was the final addition, and it was added as 13 to the 10 Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is not the Constitution. Bill of Rights is the Bill of Rights. Article 13 was the third and final article added. And as I told you before, there's no First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth. Those are Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. Because the Bill of Rights came in as a bill. So you go to almost any state constitution, you're going to see the body of the Constitution, and then you're going to see the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is to limit their power. That's what it is.
Well, the Constitution, isn't that a corporate constitution, though, still, regardless?
Corporate debt instrument in trust with the Vatican. That's all it is. So, Article 13 in New Hampshire was the final state needed to ratify it, and that happened on December 9th, 1812. So they caught wind of it and started a war. Now, why would England come over here and stop us from putting foreign agents into the Congress?
We got all kinds of foreign agents in the Congress. We've got all kinds of foreign agents.
We don't have a Congress anymore.
They're all over the place.
We don't have a Congress.
It's not even a Congress. Wow.
Hasn't been a Congress since 1861. On May 3rd of 1802, D.C. became a Roman municipality. So
No,
all you have to do is don't take my word for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the Treaty of Peace, the definitive Treaty of Peace in Paris, 1783. And you'll see that we didn't win any war. Then after the War of 1812, you'll see the Treaty of Ghent, G-H-E-N-T, and you read that again. And if you're really sharp, you'll see basically, if you read other things, that after the end of that war that we lost, that we became Lower Canada. So Canada, all those provinces in Canada are not provinces. Those are states in D.C. So where is the all-cap state of Arizona? Where is it? Can you find it? It's at the government building called Your Capitol in, and on D.C. So this is what state of Arizona looks like. It's a piece of paper.
wow.
All capital letters. It's an overthrow.
It's a
So
safe.
after the Civil War, that's inappropriately called the Civil War, and I'm from the North, and you're hearing me say it, it was the War of Northern Federal Aggression. All the people from the North got suckered in to a war by Lincoln's conscription act and forced everyone into war, and he was a total buffoon. Springsteen, Abraham Lincoln Springsteen. They did some property records, went back through his family. He was a bar attorney. So he ruined many parts of the North and ruined many parts of the South. And it was a big war on Christians, basically. And
people think we freed the
it
slave.
had nothing to do with slavery. It had to do with slavery of everyone. So the northern states fought hard to be enslaved themselves. Okay.
Oh my God.
They all were forced at gunpoint to sign on to the fictitious 14th Amendment. So the second Constitution is a charter for the government on the District of Columbia, which I nicknamed the 14th Amendment. It doesn't exist. It's only in that corporate charter. And so how do they get you under that? Oh, I'm a U.S. citizen, because that's the U.S.
Wow.
You're no different than the horse that has the U.S. brand burned into the right cheek of the horse's ass in the cavalry.
Yeah. We're just a bunch of cattle.
The South was fighting for what was left. So that's why it took like 6 Union soldiers, sometimes 8 to 10 Union soldiers to rival the effectivity of a Confederate soldier. They were fighting for freedom. The North was fighting for a job. It was a mercenary act. There was nothing about a war. No war was declared. Okay? The Jesuits started it all. Okay?
Yeah, I've read their both, and that just about makes me sick.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a mercenary act. And it was the end of what we once knew. And then Lincoln did find out what he did. He realized what he did. He could see that he actually destroyed his nation. Destroyed it. North and South. Totally destroyed it. All the southern states were overthrown except for Tennessee. That governor acquiesced. So all the northern states happily signed on to this wonderful new thing, a U.S. citizen. Well, not a good thing. So if it was attached to the original Bill of Rights, it would have been the 15th Amendment. The freedom of the slaves would have been the 14th Amendment. But there are only 13 articles. Titles of nobility. No titles of nobility, titles of honor, titles of emolument, or foreign agent can hold an office of trust without the express consent of Congress. Congress wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted nothing to do with renewing Levine's bank because it was a debt bank.
Wow.
That's how he sold it. The more you owe, the more you're worth. Well, only a usury fraudster would say such a thing. Sure, you can sell debt in the open market. Absolutely. What are you doing? You're propagating debt. So just to be a hardliner, I have nothing to do with it. I will exchange my energy, something. If someone decides to pay me, I have them pay me a postal money order backed by gold in Bern, Switzerland. Stamps, dollar stamps, but there has to be 2 lines on it. Now, anybody who's sitting in front of their computer watching this YouTube video needs to look at the number 4 on their keyboard, and they'll see that there's what looks like a dollar sign on it. It has 1 line running through it. Is that a dollar? That's not a dollar. Dollar has 2 lines running through it. So if you look at a Fox stamp that has a S and U, U.S., dollar sign. Right. Just like when you write a check, you'll notice that there's a peso sign, a fiction of BS, 1 line running through an S on the check. And it's outside the box. So the box is where you write the numbers. Otherwise, it would be many times that for the value of silver. So what does silver cost per Federal Reserve note? So anyone who's listening that's over the age of 60 might remember. 70, 80 years old, even more easily. In 1960, a silver quarter got a gallon of gasoline. Today, that same silver quarter will get 2 gallons of gasoline. So my question is, did gas go up or down in price? It went down. They're better at getting it, better at refining it. It went down 50% in cost. So why does it cost $3, $4? It's not dollars. Debt instruments. Inflation, inflation, inflation. So those Federal Reserve notes takes more of them to buy an ounce of silver. Why? Silver is fixed. The value of silver is fixed by law, and the value of the dollar is fixed by law. It doesn't move. The only time it looks like it moves is because these same Khazar banksters are manipulating the cost of silver in the marketplace by using paper silver. Fictions. So as they say, if you can't hold it in your hand, You don't own it. So buy silver. And ignore imbeciles who say things like, well, you can't buy food with silver. Well, is that BS? So you can buy it with paper that doesn't have any meaning? The paper was worth more before they printed all that crap on it. Toilet paper is worth more. Back in Germany, back early in the 20th century, it took them a wheelbarrow full of their money to buy a loaf of bread, and then more than that the next day. So what did they do? And by the way, just for some history so that people will get it in their head, the Germans welcomed these Khazars into their country. Welcomed them, gave them almost the same everything that the German people had. So what did they do? They started taking over all the commodities and banks and everything and turned the German people into paupers in their own country. And the Germans saw the Bolshevik Revolution when all these Khazars murdered. No one can decide whether it was 60 million or 110 million or 90 million Christians. Murdered them all in the street. The Germans saw this. So then it comes up to this Holocaust thing. So I'm gonna pass the judgment off to whoever's listening. Was there a Holocaust? That's my question. I'm not going to tell you whether there was or not. I'm going to ask you a question. Why did Hitler have a transfer agreement with Rothschild to ship them all to Palestine?
A transfer agreement to say that again? I'm sorry.
Ship them off to Palestine. They were the German people wanted them out, not to kill them. Okay? Sending them to Palestine. The few that didn't leave were left in concentration camps, labor camps. So when a lot of them died, and there wasn't millions, it was because the Allies bombed the supply lines to the labor camps. The Germans couldn't even feed their own soldiers by then. Okay? Right. Now, if you were gonna, in fact, you can, there's a video series in YouTube called 6 Million Jews. 6 million, a specific number. And it's a guy with an Irish accent. And he's looking at newspapers that go all the way back to early 1900s and 1800s. So we need to save 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews, 6 million Jews. There's a reason for that number. 6 million Jews, all the way back to the Balfour Declaration. Oh, we need Palestine, Lord Rothschild. We need Palestine. That was 1917. So if you were going to kill 6 million people, would you gas them to death in a delousing chamber? Would you?
In a delousing.
6 million bodies to deal with?
Yeah.
Do you want to incinerate and cremate 6 million bodies? No. If you were going to murder them all, you'd take them somewhere, dig a, I guess, Grand Canyon, throw them in there and bury them alive or something, machine gun them to death. But you got to understand industry. Do you want to move men and women around after you kill them? Now, the Germans made fantastic equipment. They're great engineers. But their gas chambers look like your pantry closet. They were delousing chambers.
Yeah, I've heard that before, because there's no way that, the length of time that it takes to...
They were shipped out. And then they didn't get what they wanted at the end of World War I. Because Balfour Declaration was 1917. Just look up Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-U-R, Declaration. They're begging for Palestine. So 1913 was the Federal Reserve Act. Zionist bankers. Okay? 1914 was the beginning of World War I. How do you think they're going to finance their monopoly game? With paper fiction. Okay? 1916, they got lured America into the war. America wanted nothing to do with the war. So they did it with the Zionist controllers of media and money, and convinced everyone to get into the war. And you should read about how the Jesuits, because they're going to first who the Jesuits were founded by back in the 1500s. So they really put a lot of Christians first on that invasion of those beaches. They hate Christians with a passion. Why? Because as Christians know that they're full of it. Not the charismatic balloon heads that say, oh, we have to support Israel. Israel is not the thing that they put over there. Rothschild back in 1825 bought land over there. So that's what the whole project got started on. All kinds of things happened in that decade, by the way. A lot of things. We could have another show just on what happened during that decade with these psychopaths from the alleged royal family and the world. So then they started populating it. And then after World War II, they finally got their wish. And then they started murdering them all. They started all kinds of terrorism over there. So their whole history is full of just filth and genocide. They're Khazars. The same people that were murdering everybody then are the same people that are doing it now. I mean, look at what they're doing to the Palestinians.
I know. Oh, my God.
Then it goes right into what's going on with Iran. Iran wants nothing to do with the Zionist bankers. They don't want usury. They don't want to be in bankruptcy. So they use gold, like Gaddafi was using gold. Oh, he was a terrorist, sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, all the countries that don't want to use oil, petrodollars to support Rothschild's Jesuit Zionist bank is a terrorist nation. Look at Venezuela. They have more oil than anybody.
I remember there was a general
because the Zionist bankers are ruining them. Okay? Now, the Bolsheviks, the murderers, they bought hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres in southern Florida. All those people are just dying to get Venezuela and the president there thrown out. So what do? They nationalized their oil. That's the same thing that happened in Iran. They had a the democratically elected president. 1953, I think it was. They got rid of him and put in the Shah. They nationalized the oil. Now let's just say, let's talk about the word socialism, which is what the warmongering military-industrial complex mainstream media likes to use. Socialism is what killed Venezuela. No. If you had 500 acres and you had a development there and it had, say, make it easy, 500 homes, and you were all part of the same group, we'll call it Venezuela, and right in the middle of it you had an oil well and it was pumping out bazillions of barrels of oil all the time. You could say, well, gee, we have all this oil, let's nationalize it, and we'll use it to pay for our schools, just like Gaddafi. We'll use it to pay for your college. We'll give you money for your marriage. We'll pay for your home, pay for your car, pay for your clothes, pay for your food. That's the socialization of something that you have in a rich abundance of. And oil is not the only thing that they have. So then you're going to say that socialization is what drove your 500 acres broke? I mean, seriously, let's go back to critical thinking. You'd have to be a walking, talking, bona fide numbskull to think that. The banksters want the oil. Now, wouldn't you know, it was Venezuela themselves who were giving really cheap oil to the people in the northeast of America who couldn't afford oil. The Kennedys were involved with that. I think it was Joe Kennedy. All the old folks, you know, living on a Social Security check, sitting in an apartment that takes, at the time, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to fill up your oil tank. Venezuela was giving them cheap oil. Whoa. And then they took all kinds of Colombian refugees and gave them full privileges, which they could afford. No problem. Now, what went wrong with Colombia? America. CIA, Cocaine Import Agency. Catholics in action, whatever you want to call it, right? So that's who's behind all the cocaine. Bush, Clinton, all on the same team, right? Hillary and Bill were laundering the money and the cocaine from George Bush. He was dropping on Mena, Arkansas airport at night. So everyone is walking around thinking things that aren't true. Just not true.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you try to project the truth, they don't want.
You got to get rid of the Federal Reserve, and you can do it. You bank under 12 U.S.C. 411. What did the wizard say when he found out that Dorothy threw a bucket of water on the Wicked Witch of the West? Melted her, right? Ah, you've liquidated her. How very resourceful of you. Federal Reserve. You always had the power, Dorothy. Just click your heels 3 times and go back to Kansas. Stop using that BS money. But Americans love their debt instruments, and they're stupid enough to pay taxes. Many states have taxes, and feds have taxes. Now, I shut people's taxes off. I give them the proper writing and the affidavits to give to the where they work. And what do? You give them the paperwork. It's self-explanatory. It's several pages, but it's an affidavit. They have to read it to stop the withholdings, right? So where do you run into your resistance? The numbskulls who work in payroll. They chew grape bubble gum and they paint their fingernails a lot. And they can't figure out that they don't owe taxes. Well, we all owe our taxes. Well, when you pay taxes on your pay, that's your energy. Your labor is your property. So if you're paying taxes, you're doing it voluntarily, and it goes right outside the country, right? And you're increasing the debt because you're using debt instruments. So the people outside the country are smarter than you. So what are they doing? They're taking it and they're buying substance with it. They're buying your land. They're buying your gold, your silver.
So it's debt in perpetuity?
Debt in perpetuity.
Perpetual debt.
Like a giant balloon. And they just keep printing more money, more money, more money, more money. And everybody goes, oh boy, I got a loan. Well, you didn't. And then you don't own the house, because if you paid for it with Federal Reserve, you own it? Do you? Why are you paying property tax? So here's some advice for anyone who thinks they own their home. Go to the county and get a certified copy of the deed. And you'll notice that it has a tenant on it. John Henry Doe in all capital letters, the resident alien who can't own property. He's the tenant. So what is a resident? A thing, ident, with a name, right? What is residential? Commercial. It's not private. Believe me, I could have 2 shows just on what you go through to turn your land into private land. Title and allodium.
That might be something that people might like to.
Done with a bill of sale. So when Jackass goes to the county and registers it as a deed of trust, which is an abandonment. A deed is not a title, it's an abandonment.
Wow.
Hello. Right. So if you think I can make this stuff up, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, really.
Right.
So
when people don't believe it, like that comment that you talked about that I wrote about.
Yeah, that was a great comment.
A bunch of that is in there because I was listening to your discussion with Drake. Drake mentioned that Iran has a bank, but they want to use gold to buy oil. Well, Iran did not pull off that bombing, and everyone's figuring it out, including the people who wouldn't want to figure it out. Exactly. Iran wants nothing to do with war. They know that they'll be heavily harmed because Israel, the genocide purveyor of death over there, has all kinds of nuclear weapons, right? And the United States is nothing but a meat puppet of Rothschild, and Rothschild runs Israel and United States. So United States is under UN IMF organization, which is Rothschild of France. So all of the courts that you see are debt collectors using you as collateral under the International Monetary Fund. British Accreditation Registry, bar attorneys out of City of London, Inns of the Court, City of London, Middle Temple, Crown Templar Bar, City of London. So that's what the crime families did. They put everybody in the water dead. So the white pope is over all of the things dead in the sea. So he's the head of the Church of the Holy See. And who runs the Vatican with him? The Black Pope, the superior Jesuit general. And when you know for the first time ever, the Pope is Jesuit. Okay? Now, who runs the Vatican? Bunch of crime families. You have the Gray Pope, Pepe Orsini. You have House of Orsini, House of Aldobrandini, House of Borgia, which is the Rothschild, House of Farnese, House of Somalia, House of Breakspear. You have all these different crime families. That's who runs the Vatican. Switzerland is not neutral. Switzerland finances all the wars. You have the Union Bank of Switzerland, UBS, and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. They finance both sides of every war. Because who is it? The Freemasons and the Khazars. The Nazis, Ashkenazi. That's who.
Wow.
Right. They're psychopaths. And you go all through Switzerland, all you see is these giant penis monuments. They're penis.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Look at the Washington Monument between above and below ground. It's 666 feet long. And it's a circumcised penis. It's Nimrod's needle. An Egyptian obelisk. Okay. So all I'm trying to say is don't feel bad that you don't know this. Don't get angry either. And definitely don't get angry at me. Learn. All this stuff is out there. So if you're not learning, you're not paying attention.
Wow.
Never mind the football game, the basketball game, the batting average of Kyle Yastrzemski. Never mind the fluoridated beer that you're drinking to plaque up your pineal gland. Because fluoride comes, by the way, from manufacture of aluminum process. So when you drink fluoride, rat poison, when you drink it, it goes in there and it tracks the aluminum and plaques up your brain. Right? Vaccination is killing people, and it is.
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't see copious amounts of evidence. There is a woman. Now let's talk here for a minute, and we can make a springboard for your next show over the next couple of things to talk about, or several next shows.
Yeah.
The Cancer Act of 1939.
Yes.
Was a Cancer Act so that they claim people who are suffering from cancer shouldn't be bombarded with malicious marketers trying to tell you that drink my snake oil and my petroleum products like Rockefeller's house to cure cancer. You need to use what we use: chemotherapy, radiation, and of course surgery.
Cut, poison, or burn.
Yeah. So Linda Thaya found a way to refine and concentrate GCMAF. That's how your body fights things. Late stages of cancer, when you're ready to drop dead and your spirit is already jumping out of your body going into the hole in the ground, she's killing your cancer. Killing and destroying autism within 1 week. Right. Real remedy. Your own natural remedy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the story. The story is what you need to think about, because I'm going to send you the guest for your show. A jackass bar attorney under the control of the Freemasons, the Swiss pharmaceutical companies, the banks. They make money on your birth certificate, and they want you dead, and they want you to pay all your money and your wealth so you can't pass it to your babies. They want you to spend it all on healthcare by poisoning you. We can go on in many directions on that. Godot was his name. He said that Linda Thaya laundered 11 million pounds for her sick campaign, basically. Now, why did he say that? It was 11,000, which is peanuts, because she did all the work herself in the laboratory. She did it all under a microscope. Worked really hard. 11,000. So he raised it up to 11 million and lied so that they can get her onto the international terrorist category, so they could extradite her from England. And then a guy in a black robe, I believe the name is Supperstone, pretended to believe the lie and had her extradited. Linda Thaya, who has proof and the actual way to kill cancer, and everyone needs to hear what I'm saying, is sitting in a jail cell in a prison in France. Okay?
That's disgusting.
It's worse than disgusting, because of all of the people who listen to this information, 1 out of 1,000,000 might actually try to do something. Everyone else is busy stuffing their face with groceries, watching football, drinking Budweiser. Okay? That's what they're doing. Paying taxes that they don't owe. They're paying taxes that they don't owe. So they're working for 4 to 8 months out of the year to pay for someone else's kid. Going into foreclosure, having a hard time paying for their car, can't get their wife what they want, can't get their kids what they want. Okay? So Linda Thyer, Lynthtyer, is sitting in a prison because they trafficked her over there. Trafficking of persons over there from England to France. Okay? The Bar Association, that's the finger of the crime families. All countries operating in bankruptcy, and there's only a few left. All of them are all operating under the bar.
Well, until the people wake up, it's never going to change either, is it?
Good luck waking them up. I'm beginning to think that the only way to wake them up is to, go grab a hickory switch and just start whipping the hell out of them. Because they just sit there and sit there and sit there like couch potatoes and watch The Price is Right, Family Feud. What are you most likely to find in the kitchen drawer on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock? Isn't that compelling information? I only see it when I go into the kitchen. It's a frontal lobotomy, electronic warfare and everything. The vaccinations. Over 50% of the kids that get vaccinated are having diseases and problems. Well, of course.
As a result. Yeah, they've already finally proven that the unvaccinated do much better than the vaccinated.
Wait, not only much better, it's a different order of magnitude. Right. Just like GMO food. Right?
Oh, yeah, I know about that one.
Body stays in inflammation. Your body treats it as toxin. So you take the GMO food and then poison it more, stick it in the microwave, and then your body stores all the toxin.
And they already radiate all the food that they that's passed through commerce. Yeah.
Right. So then it gets better. We don't want to disappoint you. Carol Woods, a social services worker, one of the sharpest women around, revealed that there was child trafficking going on at social services. And they're even taking kids. People turn a blind eye to the fact that they're taking kids from unfit parents. They take kids from fit parents because there's Social Security fraud involved. Every time they sell your kid to foster parent, and foster parents are really bad, by the way, most of them, it's $10,000 and more. Then when it goes to adoption, it's even bigger incentive. So the kids are getting trafficked for all kinds of nasty, despicable crimes.
It's always all about the money.
She reported it. She was the whistleblower. So what do they do to her? They stole her home, and I quote, "Give us the paperwork and the files and you can have your home back." Made up lies. So the police, now when you look at the police in England, Australia, New Zealand, they have that checkerboard pattern on their hat. That's a Freemasonic symbol. They went and took her and they stuck her in a mental experimentation facility. That's what they did with her. She's sitting there.
People that try to help, people that try to do the right thing, that's what happens to them.
So what I'm telling you straight out, if they're Freemasons, the Grandmaster Masons, These are the enemies of the people. They're a secret society, and they're all satanic. Up at the top especially. The lower ones, they just can't figure out what they're looking at. I was going to join them once. I walked around in their facility lodge. All this satanic stuff, satanic rituals, satanic this. Anyone with a brain could see, what the hell is this? So they run everything. They run everything. So they control the state in all caps. They control the police. The last thing that the Masons, under the control of the Swiss bankers in the Vatican, the last thing they want is for you to kill cancer, stop trafficking, because they're all adrenochrome gulping sickos. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They sacrifice kids. They use kids. They sodomize kids. They traffic kids. Pedophilia is so bad that if you were to wave a wand and stop all the pedophiles from living right now, you'd find that Washington, D.C. would become a tumbleweed-filled ghost town. Because that's why they're in there. Why? Because they have something over every one of them to control them. They have something to hang over every one of them. You ain't getting anywhere unless you're a criminal. Well, let's talk facts, okay? Tulsi Gabbard. Isn't she a Democrat running for president?
Oh, yeah, I think I heard somebody like that. I heard, yeah.
You might want to look into her. She's the only one who won't talk about going to war in Iran. Because she's a major in the army, in a medic. And she talks about how people are dying for no real cause. She was over there. Okay? So then she goes on The View, spoke less than anyone, and shut them all down, because what's The View? They call it The View because that's the propaganda that they want you to absorb. Barbara Walters, Meghan Kane, or whatever her name is, Whoopi from one of the Orbit, Goldberg, right? They're all arguing about war. We need to go to war. We need to go to war. Watch the Jimmy Dore show, D-O-R-E, and you'll see some great satire in the show and comedy, because it'll actually really, really reinforce what I'm saying, because he's figuring it out. So Tulsi doesn't want to go to war. She didn't even get to include it in the last primary debate, did she?
That figures. That just figures. The people that are trying to do the right thing is shut down.
Warmongers. They're warmongers.
Warmongers, yep.
That's what they are. They all want war, because they need to enforce their views on people. They need to force you. They're not the party. They're not the people, the tolerant. They're the people of forcing stuff on you, because that's the finger inside the population. The radical left-wing psychopath Democrats. They all have self-destruct mechanisms in them. Wow. You have to. You have to. Why would you ever want to be for someone that wants to take your money away and then force them to someone else to give their money away? So like Reagan put it, they're mad at him because he won't shoot a hole in his boat after they shot a hole in theirs. So Tulsi Gabbard wants nothing to do with this.
Well, good for her. It's nice to know that there's somebody that.
Who knows what the next thing is going to be? But anyway, then there's another thing you guys need to get into in your show.
Okay.
John Winnoa.
Oh, yes.
The infamous John Winnoa. The nut, the psychopath, the deranged, delusional moron. Right.
Not at all.
I spent a lot of time talking to this guy, because I like to find out for myself. I'm not one of the sheep. If someone tells me that this is true and that's not true, okay, but I'm going to want to research it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know. So I got to know him and everybody around him. Let me tell you what he did. This is important to every living man and woman on this planet. Back in the early 1800s, a psychopath named Queen Victoria, from a fake royal family inbred genetic disaster, intervened in a two-party contract and took over the commerce and land titles of everybody, all the planet, and misused the United Tribal Flags of New Zealand, which, by the way, brief segue, the banking emergency of 1933 was called by the Zionist bankers in New Zealand. That's when the final bankruptcy went into effect, when FDR was in there. He was nobody's friend. He amended the Trading with the Enemy Act in 1933 so that all U.S. persons are the enemy of the state. You want to be a U.S. citizen? Not me. So that's what happened in 1933 because of what they did. So John Winoa did 30 plus years of research on this. And he found out, of course, the Queen of England, Elizabeth, House of Windsor, Battenberg Mountbatten, Saxe-Coburg-Gupta, she's of the pharaonic bloodlines. Fake Khazar related, fake this, fake that, fake. The whole family lineage is not even of the original family lineage of Brito or Brutus. So they stole all the land titles. That's why no one you know has a land title. So what did John Winoa do? He figured it out. And because she did it unlawfully, he acted as a surrogate king for, I think it's William and Edward, as of what happened in 1823, I think it was. He overwrote the land titles over in England, went over to do it. Overwrote it. Took it all back for what? For the people. Now he's trying to start a bank and a thing called Tidal Electric. The last thing the oil Zionist petrodollar debt peddlers want is for us to have electricity based upon tidal movement. You have to think about this. The tides move every day. You run tidal turbines underwater at the bottom, you're going to power up everything. If you have a buoy that's attached to the bottom and the waves move, it goes up and down and up and down and drives generators, there's another type. And then people who aren't thinking things through, they want to escape from using gasoline. So what do? They come up with really great ways of vaporizing gasoline so they can get 100, 150 miles per gallon in their little cars. Well, they sell the patent or sell the ideas, or they wind up missing. Then, we need to convert to electric, which is one of the reasons we went right into Afghanistan and all that lithium over there. They want to sell electric cars now, which is a disaster to the environment, like oil is. So what does John Winoa want to do? Hydrogen. Water is hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah.
You separate hydrogen and oxygen. What do you have? Hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is extremely flammable. So you take the same oxygen, the same hydrogen, burn it, you get thermal energy, and what's the product? Water. Pure water. No pollution, free electricity, free power, free fuel. Now, do you think the people that call themselves the chosen ones, they are chosen by their god, Satan, right? They don't want that. Is that a benevolent spirit being, or is that some kind of a jackass that wants to rob you, your kids, your mother, everybody? Right. Prisons for profit, color of law. Gee, this guy possessed marijuana. It's cannabis. Cannabis kills diseases, helps your immune system. We got to stick him in jail for that. All this color of law, caca. Right. So the people need to awaken and stop waiting for someone else to come along and do it for them.
Not waiting for someone else to save them. I mean, if people don't stand together, this is just going to keep going on and on.
They won't. They won't do it. They're not looking for freedom. They're looking for a more comfortable enslavement.
Well,
right. So you have a bunch of good guests out there.
Yes, I intend to interview Nilu. I intend to interview David, and yeah, it's
So
a matter of time.
let's get back to what we saw in the comment that I didn't write.
Pardon?
Didn't Trump just marvel at how he sold the Saudis like $1/3 trillion in weapon systems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
There was the inbred prince, whatever his name was, over there. Yeah.
Mm.
Who are they bombing into oblivion right now?
You mean the Saudis?
Yemen.
The
Saudis.
Yemen. No, they're bombing the Yemens. Yeah.
Who do they work for? Israel Inc.
Israel.
Israel. Right. So they do all the nasty, dirty work. All like 9/11, 20 Saudi Arabians with box cutter knives flew 2 planes into 2 towers and brought them straight down into their basement.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Building 7 went down, and
Yeah.
Silverstein said,
And
the
really low flying plane. It wasn't a plane that went through the Pentagon.
Right where they were investigating the missing trillions of dollars.
Exactly.
Don't miss trillions of dollars that got stolen. Right. So there was no plane. You saw Rumsfeld out there picking up little pieces.
Yeah, and wasn't it the Silverstein guy who took out the insurance plan on the buildings like 3 days?
And who was in charge of the insurance?
He heisted the
Marvin
gold out of
Bush.
the basement.
Marvin Bush was in charge of the electronic security and insurance. For the first time in history, a non-uniformed man was running NORAD, Dick Cheney. Okay. Then Bush. Oh, when I saw that first plane hit the tower, I knew that was one terrible pilot. No one saw the plane hit the first tower. Right. Building 7 went down at the end of the day.
Well, the funny part of it is
you know, wire it up during the fire.
What was that? I missed.
Did they wire it up during the fire?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
They ran into a burning building and did a month's worth of work in 2 hours.
Amazing, isn't it? And didn't they find that, what was it, a passport identification? After all that burning and all that stuff, there's one of those things that's intact, found on the ground.
You know what I love watching? I'm going to show you how self-destructive these psychopaths are. Every single time they negatively affect a whistleblower like Carol Woods, Linda Thea, they create 1,000 more who are sympathetic to the problem and want to help. 1,000. So every time they hurt one, they create 1,000 more. It's like they're demonic, right? They know they're doomed, so they want to ruin everything for everybody else too. Sort of like, all right, if I can't run the planet, I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to blow up the world. That's what they are. They're criminals.
Yeah, they are.
They're
the real criminals, and they need to be dealt with. I don't know how they're going to be.
Yahoo just got the message from his people, didn't he? Because a lot of the people there are figuring out all we're doing is hurting people. Just a couple of weeks ago, a 9-year-old kid, Palestinian kid, bought an chocolate ice cream thing at the store. Goes home and he walks over to the window in his house. And this Israeli sniper shot him in the head from 100 meters away. They shoot doctors and nurses who are helping people and journalists. So they're shooting journalists. I want you to think now. But yet mainstream media always calls them our ally and how they're fighting terrorism. No.
Yeah, right. Well, I have a total opinion on that.
The terrorists. And everyone's figuring it out.
Finally. Yeah, people are finally figuring it out, and that's a good thing.
Well, a lot of the younger people now. So where did we go after 9/11? We went right into Afghanistan. I thought it was Saudis were behind it. Why did we go to Afghanistan? Because they have lithium and opium.
Poppy fields.
Poppies, right. Then where did we go? Iraq. Because Hussein, that they created, they thought he was a threat to Israel. He might have been. But instead of overthrowing him, they destroyed everything. Halliburton got all the contracts. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the first time they went there was Desert Shield, I guess, when Hussein lit up all of the Kuwaiti oil rigs. The guy Red Adair got famous because he was putting out oil rig fires. Well, Hussein said the Kuwaitis are screwing me over. Bush Sr. says, we'll turn our blind eye to you if you go over there and attack them. Well, what was Kuwait doing? Bush's own people taught them how to drill at an angle to steal Hussein's oil. So he went over there and ripped them apart. And then, we have to go after Saddam Hussein because he harmed the Kuwaitis. And he was terrorizing Iran, which is what they wanted him to do. Because Iran wants nothing to do with their banks and their oil monopoly. They want to sell their own oil. They want to put in their own pipelines. They want to do everything that they want. And every time you turn around, right when they get into good graces with the population, all of a sudden they're doing something that's not good. And who is it? Who's ISIS? CIA.
Yeah.
Who are the white hats? Funded by the CIA. So they don't know what to do with the information because they can't stop it. Anybody who posts it on Facebook gets blocked. Stuff gets taken down. Even though it's researched fact, they're doing it on YouTube. You display the information on YouTube. They take you down. So everybody who's on YouTube all the time, they have like multiple accounts.
That's depressing. I don't know.
Who runs Google? Same people.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of censoring lately.
When Google is on Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts, making all kinds of robotic weapons, be it drones, killer machines, on an Air Force.
Against the people that find out what's going on. That's so scary. People need to wake up.
Facial recognition book.
Yeah. I saw someplace in China where they were using that, and the people took it all down. I mean, the people went out and took it down.
Well, go on YouTube and look up Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics is making robots. That's Google. Then look up the little drones that are this big that fly into you and fire like a .22 caliber round into your skull.
Oh my God!
Drop hundreds of thousands of them off a plane at once. See, these Zion Nazis, that's what they are. They're the ones behind all of it. They're behind all of it. They're not your ally. Now, I spend more time reading in 1 week than most people do in a year. Right?
That's obvious to me.
As soon as I'm convinced that I'm right, that's when I say, well, not good enough. I need to find more sources, more of this, more of that. And I find them. It's out there. They're taking it down left and right. You know, Google Books is on the internet. You know what they're doing after they copy the books? They're destroying them. Right.
Oh my God. It just doesn't end. Well, David,
all the news stations say the same thing. All the media says the same thing. They're all controlled. The AP is controlled by Reuters.
I've seen that where they show all the different medias.
AP and Reuters is run by Rothschild.
Yeah.
City of London. So anyway, I guess it's time to wrap it up. It's amazing how
probably we probably should, but we could always have you on again if you'd like. It's been an extremely informative, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you have shared. And I hope people listen and pay attention and know that you do a lot of deep research.
Don't waste your time thinking that what I'm saying is BS.
Do your own research.
You can't make up stuff this good.
No, you really can't. You really can't. That's so true. That's so true.
Right.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for your time and wisdom, and perhaps we'll see you again. Okay?
You never know.
Never know. Okay.
Bye.
Oh, John Manoa, too. That was the other one we should have on. Bye-bye. Thank you.